Okay, that's good.
It's gonna
Hi. So, my second interviewee is Lawrence Leathers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask him some questions for my final.
Oh wait, I'm answering questions.
Yes, you're answering questions. Lawrence, this is for my final. Stop.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question is, how do you identify yourself?
Wow. In what sense? That's a heavy question.
Culturally.
Culturally.
How do you identify yourself? As in, like I, identify myself as black, obviously. Um, English Jamaican. Like, do you identify yourself as African American? American? Like, how?
African American is such a derogatory term to me. I really don't like it. But first of all, just take the word African. It's a continent. So, we're gonna say African North American because America is not only the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
Canada's involved, Mexico's involved, you know. But then to go and say African American is just like I don't know. That tag is awful to me. English Jamaican, it's a bit different. You did because you have the English side of things, but then you have Jamaica, which is a country.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a continent. So my thing is where in terms of identity,
Mm-hmm.
culturally that way.
Yeah.
My biggest question, or it's like not my biggest question, but my the first thing that I like to say is, okay, well, culturally, people have flags to identify with, or something to represent them, some colors to fly that maintain, the I don't know how to put it, but just have some sort of you know substantial meaning about or to that culture.
Mm-hmm.
Some significance, some like identifying quality. Like Spain has a flag, France has a flag, you know, Kuwait has a flag. Whoever, there's Japan, Senegal, which is in Africa, Nigeria, which is in Africa, Zimbabwe, which is in Africa, South Africa, which is in Africa, Niger, which is in Africa. If that's how you say it correctly, Ivory Coast, which is in Africa. So just like African American.
So
No, I don't identify. I'm American. You know what I mean? But I identify myself as Lawrence Benjamin Leathers. That's how I identify myself. Culturally, I mean whatever. It's for where you're from.
Okay.
And a lot of people get deep into digging up their roots and their past and their history, which is great to know where you're from, kind of. But unless you're like second, third generation, it doesn't really count because I didn't go through any of the struggles that my grandmother went through. She marched with King and was like part of his thing. You know what I mean? So I didn't go through that. I mean, I'm sure I went through my own separate bits of racism or whatever, segregation type thing growing up, but it was nothing like that. So for me to say, I want to find out where I'm coming from, to me, that would mean, like, okay, let's check out what my grandmother was doing. Because that's like the closest thing, like the closest living relative that I've had the chance, and the rest in peace, to, experience life with and learn from. But in terms of, going back and digging up, oh, I'm from this country or I'm from that country, and now all of a sudden, let's find out I'm from, Nigeria, or my people are from Nigeria. Somehow you can trace back, like my family roots to Nigeria, which at this point, everything is so splintered off. Even on the way over here, everything just like broke off into big like roots of a tree. How can you really pinpoint, first of all, and even if you could, it was so long ago, are you from there? Saying that we've been conditioned to our environment now. I go there now and say, hey, I'm home. What's happening? And then, hopefully I make it out of there. So, yeah, I identify myself as, I don't know, it's complicated. Clearly I'm black male, I've defied some odds, and I made it past 18. I made it past 25. I made it past 30. So I'm sure I pissed a few people off with that. But I don't know. Identifying myself culturally is a difficult thing to do. Because I don't want to pigeonhole, put myself in a box, and just submit to someone's thinking of who or what I am in general. I don't like to think of myself as a generalization.
Okay. So for for this interview,
Mm-hmm.
so would you be offended if I identified you as a Black American?
A Black American? Well, I am what is considered black. I do have a U.S. passport, so I wouldn't be offended.
Okay. So let's go to the next question.
Okay.
Okay, as a Black American man, what was the core values which were instilled in growing up? I'll present to you a list, and you can discuss on a scale which ones were most important. Okay, so there's a few.
Instilled in me
Yeah.
when growing up?
Yeah,
Okay.
core values. So there's self-direction, stimulation, conformity, tradition, hedonism, benevolence, universalism, power, and security. So which one of these values you think that were like driven into your upbringing?
What are the stimulation, conformity?
Mm-hmm.
Non-conformity was definitely a big thing growing up. But it was weird. It was, and actually, this speaks volumes of just like blacks in America and the conditioning of them. It's like psychologically and mentally, the mentality of blacks in America. Like while being taught to never conform, it was also sort of important to never buck the system out of fear of whatever.
Okay.
Like don't rock the boat, so to say. But actually, one of the first lessons I remember learning from my father was, you know, this is like it's point blank. He said, "You never have to kiss anyone's ass on the face of this earth. Not even mine." And then the lesson went on to be something else further than that. But that was the basis of it. So you never have to, never suck up to anybody, never kiss anyone's ass. You don't have to. You know what I mean? So you have 2 feet and a pair of, they're yours. So you stand on them or else somebody else will. That's one of the first lessons I remember. What is the stimulation?
Uh-huh.
Stimulation how? In terms of like environmental stimulation?
Yeah, going out, just.
Yeah, without. I received a bit of that growing up. 'Cause my parents, when they were together, they would have, card parties a lot, or they would always go over to my godmother's house, my godfather's. My aunts, I was going back and forth to Chicago, so we were always hanging, and they were pretty social people. So I got introduced to music that way, and that's like that's my biggest stimulant, I would say, to me personally, and I don't know, it's just like always partying and hanging out. But not always. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't that kind of house. But more. There was a lot of socialization. I was not. It was not. We were not a loner family, so to say.
Mm. What about self-direction? Well, you spoke about non-conformity, so could I also assume that self-direction was the core value?
Definitely, it's definitely taught to make up my own mind and believe in what I believed in. Even when I had, my parents came up with this thing, Lawrence logic. They would say, "You're the only person that thinks that way." Yeah. Did I just tell it? It's a laugh sign somewhere. So they called it Lawrence logic. But it's funny because when I was younger, they called it Lawrence logic, and now they're coming to me and saying some of the same exact things that I was saying, which is interesting to me. It's like, okay, well, I thought it was Lawrence logic. Now, come to find out, it's not really Lawrence logic. Kind of makes sense, right? Uh, 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 of breath. You need some oxygen. But anyway, yeah, Morris logic. But yeah, I've always been a pretty opinionated and make up my own mind type of person, even from youth.
What about tradition?
Tradition, family traditions.
We'll talk about that later. But any like with your core values?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we did Christmas. We weren't really big on traditions.
Okay. What about benevolence?
Benevolence doesn't like respect.
Yeah.
Explain benevolence to me in the sense that you want me to speak on it.
Benevolence, like as in kindness and just doing things for others and
Yeah, definitely. Always definitely taught to do that, heavily. It's because, I mean, the thing is, my mom, as tough a cookie as she can be, she's like got a heart of gold. So if she can help somebody, she will. But always taught to help others, like if I can, like if I see somebody in need and I can help them, if I can help someone out in a situation to do that, if I have the ability to do something that they don't, like don't look past them for the inability to do or accomplish whatever it is, rather than help them out or talk to them and find out what it is. And I mean that's been very good for me, thus far in life. It's like got me through a lot of situations, definitely connected me with a lot of people that I probably would not have had I been just the selfish type and just turn my back to whatever situation was going on. Is it okay if I tap with my drumsticks?
I guess it's that's what makes you comfortable. And do you think that these views were typically American?
I mean, I guess it's all I know. My parents have been here for years. I mean, I actually have like a genealogy report that traces like my family back generations and to slave owners. So that's pretty much all we know. It's like the American way of life, the Black American coming from the South. It's a different thing. My mother growing up in segregation, my grandmother, being active in the fight against it. So, and my father's side, my grandmother is half a Native American, so her mother was full blood Blackfoot Indian. So it's like the the way of thinking is slightly different, but still along the same lines. We're considered Black Americans.
Okay. So what's the next question? So, do you think as a child in school and social settings that your background was honored in your school? Were you able to socialize with children from different races and cultures?
Sure. How do I put this nicely? Well, I mean, it varies. I grew up in two different districts. Up until I was about 8 in the third grade, I was going to school in East Lansing, Michigan. So that's a negative, negative. Definitely was not honored. So, I mean, I was one of maybe 3 Black students in the school. Myself, Damon McNichols, and actually the other minority student that was there was and a girl whose family was from India. She was first generation from India. So, needless to say, I got into it a bit with. That was my introduction to, like racial slurs and such.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, not my introduction, but I've heard them. Growing
Yeah.
up, I was made aware of them in my upbringing with my parents. With the mother coming from Memphis, she's going through that. And my father is, the same thing, born in South Carolina, living in Chicago or whatnot. But yeah, definitely was aware of it. That was my first like